Okay, good morning, everyone. We're beginning our program for this morning. Thank you all for coming by logging in and registering. My name is Philip Freeberg. I am a lecturer with the University of Wisconsin Madison Division of Extension Local Government Center, and we partner on this program with the Wisconsin Counties Association. These are the 2020 County Officials Workshops. And we usually, as you can see on there, shorten those to COWS. And ordinarily, this is presented at 7 locations around the state of Wisconsin. But for the first time, in response to the pandemic and health concerns, we are coming to you through a webinar using the Zoom format. So the old expression is, you dance till the cows come home. Well, for these workshops that we often call COWS because of the acronym for County Officials Workshop, the cows are coming home. I want to walk you through a few features. Now, you're on the bottom of your screen, you have a toolbar, and it doesn't look like that one that just came up. But in there, there is a Q&A and also a chat box. Yours will look different from mine. So if you have questions during the program, type them into that Q&A box, and whoever is speaking, as well as the other presenters and Chelsea Severin, who is with the University of Wisconsin Division of Extension Educational Technical Services, who is guiding us through this process, can also note that they are there. And we will try to address your questions either orally, or we will address them by responding in that box, and everyone else can see that box as well. There also is a chat box, and don't ask questions of your presenters in the chat box because we're not going to be checking there. But Chelsea, our technical director, will be watching that to see if you're experiencing any difficulty with your Zoom program, if you have questions about it, if you want to know something about a way to work things from your end there. So, so Q&A, as you see, is for questions, and chat is for chatting with the University Technical Services. And then if you're really having problems, on your registration email that you were sent, there's a phone number for the Zoom company themselves who will try to help you through it. Or if you're just having bad problems with your internet, you also have the option of joining the program by a phone. Lastly, many of you probably heard at the beginning that the program is being recorded, so keep that in mind. And the reason it's being recorded is if we will have many who probably can't make this particular program. And so the Counties Association, as well as the Local Government Center, will be posting it on our respective websites sometime after today's program so that it can be accessed and the information available to everyone. So at this point, I am going off, and I am throwing the program over to Sarah Dietrich Kasdorf from the Wisconsin Counties Association. And Sarah, please take it from there.
All right, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I believe I did unmute myself. I want to welcome everyone to week 1 of our County Officials Workshops, or COWS. My name is Sarah Dietrich Kasdorf, and I am the Deputy Director of Government Affairs at the Wisconsin Counties Association. Today I'll be talking to you briefly about the Wisconsin Counties Association, and then I will be teaching the next 2 weeks on the topics of agendas and minutes and running effective meetings. I'm glad that you could join us today via webinar. I do really wish we could be conducting these COWS presentations in person, but of course we did want to ensure that we could provide this training safely to everybody during this public health crisis. So to begin, The Wisconsin Counties Association is a membership organization. All 72 counties are currently members of the association. Our association was created in 1935. The purpose of our association you can find in statutes under 595222, and that authorizes counties to join an association committed to the protection of interest and the furtherance of better county government. After Phyllis' presentation today, maybe we could come back and you guys can answer the question about why is it that authorization for counties to join our association has to be placed in statute. So that is your challenge for today. Now, granted, I did not look back at Philip's presentation to see whether or not he's going to address the issue. I think he is. No, he's not. Okay, he's not. In my version of the presentation, I talk about it. In his, he does not. So at some point throughout COWS, we'll talk to you a little bit about why it is that why our association is listed in statute. But our primary function at the association is to represent county officials at the state and federal levels through our lobbying efforts. We also provide a number of educational training information to our counties, and we also answer general legal questions as well. Now, WCA is governed by a 27-member board of directors. Our board of directors includes 14 members that are elected at our district meetings. Our district meetings typically are held the last week of April and first week of July. But again, because of the public health crisis, our district meetings are actually now scheduled to be held virtually on June 18th. Our board, we also have four individuals who serve on our board that represent 3 populous counties of Milwaukee, Waukesha, and Dane. We have 1 individual that is elected to our board of directors that also serves on the National Association of Counties Board of Directors. We have 2 diversity appointments on our board. 1 county executive serves on our board. And then the newest members on our board of directors are representatives of 5 of our top 5 constitutional offices across the state. The board of directors really provides policy direction to our association staff, as well as adopts our association's annual budget. Our policy positions, however, do not just come from our board of directors. Our members do have the opportunity to submit resolutions on matters of public policy affecting counties that get voted on by our members at our annual business meeting. Our annual business meeting is held typically in conjunction with our annual conference, and resolutions that are adopted at the annual business meeting then become part of our policy platform. For counties that are interested in submitting policy resolutions for consideration at the 2020 annual business meeting, that deadline this year is June 22nd. So our association provides a number of services to our members. As mentioned earlier, our primary function is really lobbying on issues in all areas in which influencing the decision-making process can assist county government. Our lobbying efforts include many, many meetings with state legislators. We meet many times with their staffs. We meet with the governor's office on many occasions, as well as other members of the executive branch of government. We review at our association every piece of legislation that is introduced and identify whether or not it has an impact on county government. On those bills that have an impact on county government, we lobby them extensively. We testify before legislative committees, and we also do, as part of our work here, we do assist in the negotiation of contracts with the state. We have a 5-member government affairs team. We have a director of government affairs, a deputy director of government affairs, 2 government affairs associates, and then a government affairs assistant. We also, as part of our association efforts, in addition to lobbying, we put out a number of publications that are available to our members. The first publication I'm going to talk about is Wisconsin Counties Magazine. This is what it looks like. I hope many of you have seen this document already. This is our, it is our official publication of the association. We use our magazine a lot to cover hot issues of the day that impact county government. Since it is now a member benefit and every county official receives it as part of being a member of the association, we also use the magazine a lot to announce official happenings of the association. So I highly, highly recommend that everybody, at least page through the magazine every single month. In addition to our magazine, we have our County Officials Handbook. This document looks like this. This document was distributed to all county officials, we hope, at your organizational meetings, or we hope that you received it at some point from your county clerk. The County Officials Handbook gets updated every 2 years following the spring election. It is currently in its 7th edition. It has a number of chapters relating to items that are critical for county officials to know about, such things as your duties and your responsibilities. It talks about personnel policies, the open meetings law, public records law, parliamentary procedure, and a whole other slew of issues. So if you have a question with regard to something happening in your county, probably one of the first places you'll want to take a look is the County Officials Handbook to see whether or not the issue was addressed there. Then we also have a County Officials Directory. Looks like this. The newest version of it will be coming out in July of this year. That document compiles basically a list of all county government officials, whether they are elected or appointed, prints them in a county by county basis, and also included with regard on each county's page is information with regard to a county's history, geography, and census data. We also have our most popular publication, which is our County Government History, Services, and Funding piece. And this piece is updated again every 2 years. It was just updated this spring. It is designed for use by county officials, and we get requests for this from libraries, teachers, from a lot of folks across the state. It includes a summary of the history of county government. It also talks about the extensive services that counties provide, and I think that's the section of the document that folks find most useful and that we get our most requests for. And it also includes an in-depth look at the funding mechanisms that are utilized by county government. Oops, I skipped our WCA e-news. I don't want to do that. Our WCA e-news, it's an electronic publication that we put out, typically as needed, and it provides a wide array of information on topics that are not only related to county government specifically, but also on a lot of topics that we think county officials would find useful in making some of their policy decisions. With regard to last association service on this page is related to outreach. We do have an outreach and engagement effort within the association. We think it is important at our association for us to be available as an education and training resource to our county officials. Our goal with our program is really to effectively communicate and interact with members with regard to how it is our association can best serve your needs. To that regard, if there are services that you would like us to provide, educational programming you would like us to give, please give us a call at the association and let us know how it is that we can help you. Our staff is mobile, we travel, we love to come to your counties to meet with you and talk to you about a number of topics. We have a lot of presentations similar to what you're going to see throughout COWS that we do a number of times a year for individual county boards. We also go to many conferences to speak, and we also go to regional meetings as well. So again, any way it is that we can, reach out to you to provide you with information that you need, please let us know. Our association also has a public relations or communications effort. We have, as most organizations do, we have a website, we have a Facebook page, and we are on Twitter as well. I am not really up on social media, but I know our website, for example, does have a lot of information on it with regard to everything that happens at this association. It is open and available 24/7 for you to take a look at, to get information with regard to our annual conference, any other events we have. Every piece of legislation that impacts county government is under the legislative section of our website. There you can link to every piece of legislation that impacts counties. You can see our testimony on that legislation as well. And you can link then to the legislature's website from our website, and you can access copies of bills, copies of amendments to bills. From there, really, you can get any information that you need on any single piece of legislation. With regard to our educational efforts, we hold an annual conference in September of each year. Our annual conference is held typically in either in Sauk County or in La Crosse County. We get about 1,000 county officials and vendors that join us every year at our annual conference. We have at our conference a couple of general assemblies where we have some pretty high-level speakers that come to join us. We also have 30 concurrent sessions as well at our annual conference that take place. And those 30 sessions are held on issues that are hot topics of the day surrounding county government. You know, oftentimes when you go to a conference, you may go to a lot of concurrent sessions and find a lot of folks don't participate. That is absolutely not the case with our conference. Most of our, if not all of our concurrent session rooms are full of folks looking to get educated, again, on the hot topics of the day. So again, I highly recommend that you attend our annual conference in September of each year. In addition, we have a legislative exchange that is held in February of every year, always in Madison. As part of the legislative exchange, we bring in top-level speakers in Madison. Oftentimes, the governor will join us at the legislative exchange. It's a great way for county officials to network, to talk to each other, and really to meet with their legislators as well during that time. We also have educational seminars that we hold a number of times a year. These are held typically in the central part of the state. We hold these educational webinars free of charge to our members as a member benefit. They typically run from 10 to 3 each. They're held on Mondays, run from 10 to 3, where we have programming from 10 to 12, take an hour break for lunch, and then we do programming again from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. Again, if you have any topics that you would like to see us do an educational seminar on, please let us know. We also, a few years ago, started holding educational webinars. We understand that sometimes folks can't travel or necessarily dedicate a full day to attend an educational seminar, so we hold webinars as well. They're typically an hour in length, again, free of charge to join. You can do those right from your home as you're doing the cows today, which means there is no cost to you to join our educational webinars as well. I'm going to skip over county officials workshops because my guess is since you are joining us today, you are very familiar with our cows program. You also have available to you the Wheeler Report and WisPolitics. Those are e-news services that they cover the legislature specifically. The Wheeler Report will typically give you a listing of hearings and happenings of the legislature. WisPolitics will also talk about legislation as well, but more so it'll give you a lot of links to newspaper articles on political issues, and it does also cover local governments as well. And again, these are free of charge to you as a member benefit. If you would like to sign up to receive the Wheeler Report or WisPolitics, all you need to do is contact our office and we will certainly get you on the list. The last item on this page with regard to education is what are counties? This is something that we put together a number of years ago. There's a toolkit that is on our website. It contains a PowerPoint presentation, but probably the piece of the toolkit that gets used most often is our 3-minute video that in 3 minutes talks to you about everything that county government does. We find that our county officials like to use this when they go out and talk to school groups or local civic organizations, because it's a real quick and simple way for you to talk about county government in general and all of the services that are provided at the county level.
Sarah, this is Philip. Real quick, we have a question of if an elected county official, and I think we mean by that supervisors or other officials, are automatically a member of the association.
As long as your county is a member of the association, then every supervisor is a member of the association. And in 2020, all 72 counties did pay membership dues to the association. And so all counties are members. Now, while officially our Constitution may talk about our membership being county boards and county executives, we do really feel that we represent and want to hear from all members of the county family. So we work very closely, not only with county executives and county supervisors, but we work closely with county administrators, we work closely with the constitutional officers, as well as the department heads and their respective organizations. And I apologize, when I have my share screen up, I can't see questions popping up. So thank you for jumping in and letting me know. With regard to—
Sarah, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but there was one question that came in through the chat, wondering if the County Board Officials Handbook, statutes, and other publications are available in some format that a blind person could use or access.
I don't believe we have that available at this time. I will talk to our publications manager and we can certainly look into that. All right, I think that appears to be it for the questions for now. So I'm just going to go on very quickly to talk about some additional services of our association. We do have a Wisconsin County Mutual Insurance Corporation. The County Mutual provides general liability, automobile, police professional, and errors and omissions insurance for counties. It is owned by 52 of Wisconsin's 72 counties. Probably the most popular feature of our County Mutual Insurance Corporation is its dedication to risk management services. The risk managers for the County Mutual provide over 500 on-site safety training sessions annually to county members. And I think that's a real benefit to having a mutual insurance and liability corporation that is owned specifically by counties and that works specifically on behalf of county government. We also have a WCA Group Health Trust. The Group Health Trust was created in 1991. It provides employee benefit programs, including health, dental, and vision benefits to county, municipal, and school district employees. And then we have the WCA Services, Inc. That is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Wisconsin Counties Association. It's in essence our for-profit arm. WCAC provides services that really assist local governments in operating more efficiently and cost effectively. Oftentimes we will enter into contracts with vendors and other corporations that will then offer services to our counties at a reduced rate. The nice thing about going through WCAC and our contracts is we have already done all of the vetting of the corporation. All you guys need to do as counties is take advantage of the offerings. The final additional corporation that is associated with us that I don't have on the slide, but I do want to give a quick mention to, is Forward Analytics. Forward Analytics was created in 2019, and it's the research arm of our association. You will see a number of reports that come out of Forward Analytics over the course of a year. The document that you will be seeing in July is the Green Book of County Facts. That is, it's a book that will be distributed to all members, and it contains a variety of measures related to county government organization and finance, demographics, county economics, development. A lot of counties use the Green Book. They tell us it's very valuable for them when they're looking at long-range planning. The last slide I really have is ways to get involved in the association. I can't stress enough, we are a membership association. We do want to hear from you. We want to make sure that we are representing your needs well. in providing you the services that you need. There are many ways that you can get involved in the association. One of the easiest things to do is to join one of our 5 steering committees. Our steering committees, they review
Sarah, it seems like we lost you there for a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So our 5 steering committees, we just are currently forming our steering committees for the next 2 years. So if you would like to join one of our steering committees, it is never too late. Just feel free to contact the office and we will get an application to you. Our steering committees meet 3 times a year. They meet every July. And in July of every other year, they make recommendations to the board of directors on our legislative agenda. And in July of every year, they make recommendations to our resolutions committee, as well as the delegates to our annual business meeting on our conference resolutions. One of our programs that we started a number of years ago is our County Ambassador Program, or CAP team. I'll tell you, folks who participate in this program love it. We love it. We love to have our members participate in this. This is a group of county officials that joins the WCA Government Affairs staff in its lobbying and education effort with the legislature. 3 to 4 times a year during the legislative session, we will bring our CAP team to Madison. We will prep you guys on the top issues that are currently before the legislature that impact counties. We send you over to the Capitol. You meet with your legislators on that day. You come back for lunch, where we typically will have either somebody from the governor's office, a legislator, or a secretary of the State Department join us for a brief presentation. And then we send you guys back to the Capitol in the afternoon. Again, those that participate find it very valuable. And we hope to continue to grow our County Ambassador Program. I can't stress enough, as one of the lobbyists of the association, how important it is for members of the legislature to hear from you as our members. I already talked about the other 2 things on the list, so it's just listed as ways to get involved. But again, I'm not going to talk about the seminars, webinars, or the conference once again. So with that, I think I am done unless there are any additional questions.
There was a question asking if there is a list of which of the 52 counties have the mutual insurance.
I can certainly, the County Mutual does have a website. That is www.wisconsincountymutual.org. And I'm guessing on their website, there would be a list of the 52 counties that are currently members of the County Mutual. If not, I will talk to our County Mutual folks and ask them to add that. All right, anything else?
Yeah, real quick, Sarah, I point out to everyone to look at the Q&A that Jennifer Bach, the publications editor and managing editor, I should say, has answered the question about access to documents for those visually impaired. And so check the Q&A box. She has put in an answer for that, which generally is they are in PDF format, and through the Adobe Acrobat programs, those can be read verbally to those visually impaired. 2 more questions is, what is the process for becoming part of the CAP team?
Okay, so the process for becoming a member of our CAP team is typically we'll send out the application forms for that usually sometime around the end of September or early October. You fill out an application form. It needs to be signed by your county board chair. You send it in, and then those individuals would be appointed by the chair of the WCA Board of Directors.
And then here's another question. You're very popular. What are the financial resources of the WCA?
Okay, so our association has a number of financial resources. Dues, membership dues serve I don't know if it's down to maybe 16% of our revenues. Then we also get revenues available that come to us from our for-profit arm, as well as, you know, we have revenues that come in from our events, and we have revenues that are also generated through our other corporate efforts as well.
And the question is whether every county has a CAP.
In other words, does every county have somebody who is on our CAP team?
I think that's what it's going.
The answer is no. Do I wish every county had somebody on the CAP team? Absolutely, I do. I would love to have CAP team day where every single legislator is met with by one of their county officials. So that, of course, is the goal. You know, we try to recruit heavily, but sometimes, again, we understand that county finances don't necessarily always allow for a county to be able to pay mileage and per diem for their members to attend. But it is certainly our hope to have as many counties participate as possible.
And then, Sarah, someone wants to know what's the process for applying to join one of the steering committees?
Okay, the process, we have a form that needs to get filled out. Basically, you tell us your name, you tell us your address, how to get in touch with you. And again, if you are a county board member, your county board chair needs to sign off on your application. If you are a department head or employee of a county that has a county executive, then the county executive would sign off on your form. And again, if we did the forms electronically this year, typically we do it all by paper so that you can get the signature of the county board chair. But because we were recruiting at a time where everybody was socially distancing and county board members weren't going into the courthouse, we decided to do it electronically this year. So again, just feel free to give the office a call if you're interested in participating, and we'd be happy to get you an application form. All right, is that it?
I think that is no more questions. I think
all right, perfect. I'm going to stop sharing my screen then and turn it over to Daniel.
Good morning. I'm going to get my presentation up here. There we go. My name again is Daniel Foth. I'm the interim program manager for the Local Government Center, which is now the Local Government Education Program since we merged with UW-Madison. Our mission and goal, our mission is to provide focus, coordination, leadership to educational programs supporting local governments and expand research and knowledge base for local government education. And our goal is to build the capacity of local government officials, but also county-based extension educators in terms of local government best practices, legal requirements, and practical applications addressing governance and operation issues. Our partners are the Wisconsin Counties Association, League of Wisconsin Municipalities, Wisconsin Towns Association, and again, county-based extension educators. And I should note that this partnership has been growing pretty strong since 1991 when we were originally formed. We do a number of workshops. This year we're doing cows, and even COVID-19 could not stop the cows workshop. As you can tell, we're doing it virtually this year. Also, we do a similar workshop every other year for the Towns Association, and some county board supervisors are also town or local government officials. So you're welcome to attend those. We do budget workshops in the fall, and we do get quite a few supervisors at the fall workshops, primarily because of the budget issues discussed. And I'm sorry, for some reason, my slides are automatically advancing. I have no idea why. So for distance education, we do a lot of different topics. We get experts in the field on the topic so you can have an informal dialogue with them. It's an opportunity for Q&A. And we also archive the recordings. And now that we're on Zoom format, those recordings are audio and visual together. And about a little over 55,000 people have participated since 1993 when we started. And really important, if you have any thoughts or questions or a topic that you're really interested in, let us know. My contact information will be on the last slide. We have 3 different distance programs: local land use planning and zoning distance. And each year we have a case law update. That's an annual item. And then the other items are, depends on which year you're talking about. This year we did managing local rights of way and also planning member responsibilities as local officials. We also have an essential series. The first 2 programs were on alcohol beverage licensing. And we have one upcoming this fall on adjusting your levy limits. And again, please share your ideas. And we have local government issue strategies and challenges, which are basically items of current interest. We had a great meeting on the virtual public meetings, and that information is available for free on the website. And then tomorrow we have When Revenues Fall, Weathering the COVID-19 Recession. If you're interested in attending, you can go to the website under the Issues, Challenges, and Strategies webinar series and register. There's no cost to register. And again, if you have some thoughts about current issues that you're concerned with or want some more education on, let us know. This is a list of the different local government education areas. And Philip today is going to talk about structure, roles and responsibilities. I work on budget and finances. Philip is our ethics expert. He and I both work on open meetings and effective meetings. Melissa Kono out of Clark and Trempealeau counties is focused on our voter education effort. And as noted, we do a number of videos, webinars, fact sheets. All of this information is available on our website. And we have a new website address as of yesterday, and that is localgovernment.extension.wisc.edu. And again, the website address changed due to merging with the University of Wisconsin, Madison. And with that, that was pretty quick, but thank you. And if there's any questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, Philip will let you get to the learning. And I also encourage you, since this is a COWS event, that you should all milk Philip's presentation for as much education as you can get out of it.
Daniel, we do have a couple of questions.
Oh, wonderful.
One is, will the levy limit adjustment training occur in time for budget development work?
It's going to happen in, I believe, early September or August. So it'll be close, but it probably won't be. I guess it's going to happen in August, is what I think it is.
And then Daniel, the question is if they could see the web address again.
Oh.
I think we maybe want to mention that if you have the old address, which my presentation will have, that you will be for a certain time period still forwarded, but I don't know if you want to put that up again real quick.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay.
We'll put it in the chat or the chat also. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, then I am going to start from this point then. And again, let me once more welcome you to the program. You know about a little bit more who we are. Now, I'm going to be talking about you and your role and the role of counties, as well as the roles of everyone who works for and with counties. And I am putting up the first slide here, a little more detail. I am an attorney. If you were looking at my background, it is in the reading room of the University of Wisconsin Law School, where I began my career more years than I care to say ago. And I'm but I have been teaching for the last 13 years with the UW-Madison Division of Extension Local Government Center. And you also see our website on this opening slide here. That is the old address. As you can tell, it was a little bit simpler. And for a brief time that we are told that will still access our complete library of information and ongoing and updated information to everyone, not only those who work as officials, but also for your constituents as well. Another thing I want you to notice before we go off the opening slide here is that I have a picture of the Green Bay Packers, and you may be asking yourself what that has to do with roles and responsibilities of county's officials, or at least I hope you're asking that. And from this point, I'm not going to answer it. I'm going to ask at this point that you keep that image in your mind, and we'll be connecting that up. And by the end of it, you'll see why I thought that was an appropriate way to open the presentation. Now, when we have the benefit of meeting together, I actually throw this question out to the group, but I want you to think about this question. And if you like, maybe even in chat, you could share your answer to that, but it's not required, not necessary. But think back to when you decided to run for the office you have. I would guess most of you are supervisors. And what motivated you to do that? Here's some suggestions. Ask yourself, why did you run for office? Was it because somebody asked you to? And if you want to comment on that, just put it in A. You had concern regarding a particular issue. And maybe it was, that you wanted to, felt like you should give back to your community. Or possibly you had a specific goal of trying to lower taxes. Or maybe there were a lot of other reasons. But I think keep those in mind, because I think that will help you set the tone for what we're going to be discussing from this point forward. I'll share with you that I was an elected official. My first job as an elected official was about 4 years after law school, where I was a district attorney and county corporation counsel. And because I held both of those positions at the same time, those are a little rare these days. It gives you an idea how long ago it was I did that. But that got me interested in government and local government law in a big way from that point forward. Now, I'm guessing that a lot of you, nobody said that I did the job or I chose to run because of all the praise and appreciation you're going to get from your neighbors and other citizens. I think most of you realize that this is going to be work, it's going to be demanding, and you're not always going to be appreciated for the time and hours and effort that you put in to your elected position. I want to share with you a brief story about President Lyndon Johnson. Talked about that when he was president, that he said if he could walk across the Potomac River, that the newspapers the next day would say, our president can't swim. And, because you're in the public eye and you're doing things for the public, that's always a risk that you're going to receive criticism. But I think many of you probably, for some of the answers that we maybe suggested in this slide, some of you might have something very personal reasons. I think back to I also served in an elected position, municipal judge, and I remember giving back and doing more was a big part of wanting to take on that additional responsibility. I think one thing we have in common, whether you said it to yourself or not, is that all of us, those of you, us working with you in county government, and all of you that are serving county government, want to make things as good as you can. I don't think anybody ran for election to try to make the county government fail. And that is why, since we have that common goal, that's an important part of focusing on leadership and why we will need to do that, because that's what we want to do. And you want to be in a position 2 years from now when your term is over to say to yourself, well, I can identify some things that this county and specifically myself accomplished in those 2 years. And I caution you, you don't want to look back and say, I got way too immersed in the weeds on a particular issue and a particular problem so that a whole lot of other things got overlooked or maybe weren't properly addressed or didn't find the best use of your talents. And the biggest challenge you have as county leaders is counties are being asked to do more while being provided with fewer resources. This is true of local government throughout Wisconsin. And so that's the problem. Where do we look to make it work? And I think where your important role will be in exercising leadership, showing ways to find answers, showing ways to find things that don't work, not just saying no, but when you hear someone say no, okay, take a moment and say, tell me what's your idea. And there's a difference between leadership and management. In leadership, one of the things you do is you model the way. You not only point the way forward, but you also are in step with that and proceeding that way yourself. And you try, if you have a vision, you try to inspire others to share that. Or if if the vision isn't clear, try to figure a way to inspire and create and share that. And one of the things that I have learned through my almost 40 years of working with local governments is I hear a law that people say that's not in writing, but everyone says it as if it is. And that is when you suggest an idea, or for me, frequently pointing something out as an attorney, somebody will say, well, that's not the way we've always done it, or we've never done it before. Well, a part of what the leader does is challenge that kind of thinking and process, introduce new idea, introduce inquiry, looking out and trying to find more. But the other thing you're doing is you're there to enable others to act. You have a whole group of people, a team that are there in county municipal buildings and county courthouses day in and day out, every working day, and some are there some 7 days a week. And you're there to be able to inspire them and, more importantly, enable them to act, give them the tools to do and help you provide a way forward for your county. And that means encouraging their hearts too. Yes, you need to make sure that they're doing things correctly. Yes, you need to make sure your expectations, but you also want them to do well. You also want them to provide the best services they can do. This is distinguished, then that's leadership. That's different from management. And your role as a county official, with the exception we might talk about it a little more specifically, is not to run the day-to-day operations of county government. Day-to-day operations that's what is done from when the whistle blows until someone leaves their office that day or leaves their truck or their squad car. That's the part that leaders inspire that and guide it, but they don't do that day to day. So to be a leader in a county government, it's important for you to understand the context of the role you're going to play. Well, that's kind of a jump to the second bullet point. Let's look at the first one though. Understand the context. What do counties do? What can counties do? And how can they do that? And what is your role in counties doing their mission and meeting the needs of their citizens? And what we're going to be talking about here is helping you understand where you fit into the context and what is that context. Now, one of the challenges I think for counties is that they have two purposes. One of them is as an arm of state government. There's a lot of things that the state government needs to get done and wants to get done and enacts laws and programs to do that. But then they pass it off to get the boots on the ground. Usually the counties are the implementers, the ones that do it. So you have that function to where almost your representative role is difficult to reach that higher level of decision making. And some of that lobbying work that Sarah talked about is one way to try to connect that. But the other thing you do as a county official and as county supervisor is you take that one purpose as well as looking at what your local needs are and how to respond to those. And that's probably an important function of a elected official. I'll mention this a couple of times, but I'll introduce it here as I've always thought as the county board supervisor as there is a power generator, and the power generator is the citizens of your county who put you in that job. And your job then as the extension cord to take that power as well as communication and put it into effect through the county government and make sure that the county government stays in touch with that and understands that power source and communicates with it. So when we look at things that county does as part of its role with the state government as an arm of the state government, you have law enforcement. All the criminal statutes are enacted by the state legislature, as well as other parts and functions, trainings and standards, all comes from state government. You have an important role of vital record retentions. And the obvious example of that is the register of deeds, but that also occurs as to probate, as to property ownership, property records, and all of that is needed by the state and happens at the local county level. In circuit courts, everyone deserves a day in court, but that would be meaningless if the court was always in Madison or Milwaukee. That's why there are courts in the county seats, and the county has a role of providing that forum there for everyone. And of course, the reason that got you here, but also another reason the counties are there is to make elections work, as well as various social programs. So there's that role as an examples and some indications as an arm of state government. But you also directly respond to and are part of local needs and have the means and tools to address those. Just a few examples would be county parks, and sometimes those are trails, often land use regulations, including not only zoning, but also sometimes land division, as well as maybe sanitary systems, issuing sanitary permits for septic in unsewered areas of your county. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the local provision of county extension, which is where you take the knowledge and information and resources of the state university system, and you have a means to bring that to your local people through community development type programs, which this program is, or agricultural needs, family living, youth programs, especially 4-H, soil conservation is another area. So that's where you have local needs that the county itself generates, puts it together, and makes it work, not just simply as an arm of state government. So let's talk about the nature of the creature of county government itself. The statutes is where we begin, and it's Monday, so I'm a little slow, but I picked up on what Sarah's point that she wanted me to make regarding the Counties Association, and I will do that. Counties are created by the state legislature. They wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the state legislature, and of course they create that through state law. Also, it's in the Constitution, but basically the Constitution gives that control to the legislature. And the legislature, through its statutes, have says that each county is a body corporate. Well, what does that mean? You might remember a few years ago, and maybe it gets said now, where they say corporations are people, but the county is a legal entity, and which means, as any legal entity, it can sue and be sued. It can acquire property and do anything a human person could do with property, not in the same fashion and necessarily same way, because decisions aren't made the same way, but they can acquire and hold property, including lands that may be acquired by tax deed. If you're not familiar with that, tax deeds are the ultimate way to collect property taxes. Is when a tax has been delinquent for a long enough period of time, the county comes into ownership of that land and then can do many things with that. Lease it or enter into contracts, including contracts for conservation purposes. And this statute says something that I thought it was important enough to quote here in this slide. Such other acts as are necessary and proper to the exercise of the powers and privileges granted and the performance of the legal duties charged upon it. Now that seems like a very broad statement of power, but we'll see the full extent of that. You have the power, but within limits, and we'll explain this more in detail as we go here. First of all, let's talk about the county board. County board is how Wisconsin law provides for government of counties, and they're elected board of supervisors. Some counties have as many as 40 supervisors, and they represent supervisory districts that could include towns and cities and villages, sometimes all three of those, but they represent their various areas in the county. Here's a map that we prepared, which this is from 2018, so it may need updating. The statutes talk about what the maximum numbers are of the county board, so that's where that number comes from. In this map, we've provided the current number of members for a county board, and then what the statutes would allow. And I think one thing that's interesting about this particular map is you don't see many counties opting for the maximum number, with the exception of Menominee County. And that's because they're a special statutory, because they're also a Native American nation. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because they're special status. But for you, you see that varies. Now, so what do counties boards do? And what are they empowered to do is probably the better question. Well, unlike cities and villages and counties and towns to some degree, but counties do not have what's called home rule authority. Home rule authority is the ability of a local government to take its police powers and create areas of regulation, areas of prohibited conduct, areas of land use protections and regulation, licensing, that are not specifically authorized in the statute, but part of a general grant of power. County boards only have those powers specifically granted by the statute. For example, you will see in section 5954 of the statute, it's called Public Protection and Safety, and it lists the type of ordinances that a county could enact locally, that if they are granted that power. The distinction would be like a city or a village has public protection and safety powers that aren't necessarily specified in statute. Here's a very, very small example. Many cities and villages have what's called a cruising statute, a statute that defines, going up and down a street kind of the American graffiti thing where the high school kids were just constantly going up and down the street and essentially socializing through putting multiple little cars out on the road. Some cities and villages found that to be a problem and some hindrances to and dangers. So they've created ordinances, but there's no state statute for that. And the counties do not have the power to create one. So that gives you some idea of what it means when the statutes give you empowerment and not. I mean, one important thing that the county does do and wouldn't be able to do anything without this power is the ability to adopt a budget and to levy taxes. And the statutes go on to say that the administrative and management authority of a county board is only to the extent not otherwise provided for by statute. And, pardon me, a little bit of summer allergies here. So the statutes recognize some need for administrative management, but you're going to see that since that language was put into place, the legislature put in some places that kind of impacts and affects that particular power, which is reserved through that language. Now, the other things that county boards do is they oversee county operations, but they do so collaboratively. And by collaboratively, meaning the county board itself acts together and acts collectively. But in overseeing those, they set the expectations or the ends of what the county should achieve and do. They delegate how and who it's going to go to, and they evaluate the progress of those expectations. That's an important county board functions. They do regulate and do those ordinances where they are empowered to maybe regulate certain types of activities or conduct. They come back to this as the one I thought this is that power cord analogy that I gave you. Their important county board function is to involve, represent, and remain accountable to the public, not only board themselves, but all levels of county government. And they're also there to work with and cooperate with other governments. There are other areas of local government that county jurisdiction overlaps, but there are often times when they need to work together. For example, or emergency management or mutual aid to local law enforcement, but other ways as well to try to address regionally shared needs, goals, and programs. The important thing to keep in mind is county boards are the long-term thinkers. They're the big thinkers. They're the leaders. When it comes time to provide drainage for a county road, they may identify that as an important need or stormwater management as a need, but they're not out there on the road with a shovel in their hand or at the controls of a backhoe. Those are short-term goals. And so that's the county board thinks leadership and thinks long-term rather than short-term, day to day. So this is where I think a lot of confusion comes in, but some of the confusion justifiably so. The supervisor has the power, but its power is collectively. It acts through the board, through the meetings, and in that fashion. And this is an evolution we've seen in county government. I would say in the as 70 years ago, county government in its dual role with the state did not have as many functions as it has today, nor were the issues and the functions as complex. And county boards were like big town boards in a lot of ways, where the county board, everything fell to the county board. Now, the county board only acts in those methods where they act collectively. And so as a county board supervisor, you have not an authority or power as an individual, but as an individual who comes in and works as a member of the county board. So when you're called a supervisor, you really don't supervise everything. The term supervisor is a historical term. It's just what the position of a county board member has always been called. I would argue it's probably easier to say than county board member to say you're a county supervisor, but it is a description of what you have historically done. It is not a description of what your responsibilities are, because you really don't supervise anybody individually. The county board serves primarily a legislative function. It's in contrast to if you get involved in the National Association of Counties, you will find that most states have a board of county, a form of county government that they call it either a board of commissioners or commissioners, and they're smaller. In a legislative function, and that legislative function is policy making, setting the public policy for the county. Now, you do that through lawmaking. And you say, what, lawmaking? Well, we'll talk about that in a little more detail. We do that through the budget power. And in a week or so, you're going to hear my colleague, Daniel Foth, talking about how important the budget document is and how it may be one of your key and most important decisions. And you do it through cooperative decision making and setting plans and goals. I'm going to take a brief moment here just to see. Okay, I'm going to do two things. One of them is, it says, a question is, where do we find the statutes? And the primary place you will find the statutes dealing with county government is through Chapter 59 of the statutes. And if you look at your county officials handbook, you will often see that cited in there, and a lot of the quotes you see are coming from that provision of the statutes. It's not the only place, but that is a primary place. The other thing I'll point out too is, if you go into an internet search and you put Wisconsin statutes, they will give you links to where you can find those very easily. And you can search them through. Now, what I'm hoping is the next question is, somebody says I'm fading in and out, so I'm switching from wireless technology to I am plugged into my computer, and I am turning off my wireless microphone and listening. Chelsea, am I coming through okay?
Yep, you sound good to me.
Okay, we're going to continue with this function. So I have in earbuds with a microphone on it. Someone commented to me one time, it's very appropriate for the pandemic because you look like a doctor when you do that. So I took care of that. Moving on then, and you see I do check and look for the questions occasionally. Now, when we say it's a legislative function, and we talked about that you'll be doing lawmaking, budgeting, creating plans, and doing cooperative decision making, then that's a lot to do at a monthly meeting. And that's why counties are structured with committees. And that's where a lot of the preliminary work is done, a lot of the study is done, because with all that counties do, some of the details would be just too much and take too much time to be totally at a board level. So the committee is there. It also provides for some collaborative policy oversight for departments and offices of the counties. They can focus and be a little more understanding on the functions of particular offices. And because they have those understandings, they review and make budget recommendations. And they also consider ordinances and resolutions. And we'll talk about what ordinances and resolutions are and the differences between those in a few seconds. But the other thing is they work the other way. You know, we talked about that the county board doesn't have a management function, but there is a day-to-day operations of the counties. And that is done by county staff and other county elected officials. And you have and will need to access that information because they're doing it day to day. They're doing it day in, they're doing it day out, they're not running the entire county, they're running their particular part of the county. And so you look to them to inform your decision making and cooperate with you and respond to help you do your job. But your focus is not on supervision again, its focus is on developing policy. Now, a committee needs a chair, and that's an important leadership role for matters in the committee's jurisdiction. By jurisdiction is a fancy word for saying the stuff that's their job, the things that their responsibilities. And the chair has certain roles as to the committee, but they still vote and they still play a role on that, even though they have some specific duties. And those duties are to set the agenda. And let me make it clear. Set the agenda means prepare the agenda. Agendas, as you will learn later, are used as notice, but that doesn't mean that they control the agenda. A good committee chair looks to its committees to help guide that process and is responsive to their committees in that regard. The other thing you do is, it almost goes without saying, you probably could answer this question yourself. You preside, the chair presides at a meeting, and then the chair is the person the committee looks to make reports and recommendations to the full board on the committee's behalf and speak to their measures or respond to questions about the committee and the committee work. So there we see that the county board makes policy. We talked about that it utilizes committees to try to better understand, learn, research, and formulate policy. Then how does it actually happen? Well, it happens through plans, budgets, there we go again, and ordinances and resolutions. Let me break those down a little bit. Plans, well, there are a lot of different types of plans, but the plans is where you look and you set desired future conditions that you want to see in the county for the benefit of the citizens and the county's operation, and provide the plan steps to get there. One of them you'll hear about, or you may even have a lot of familiarity with from other positions or just watching county operations, is the comprehensive plan, which is focused on land use, but it talks about a lot of other things such as housing and intergovernmental cooperation. These are in effect required by law. In other words, you cannot adopt a zoning or any land use regulation unless you have a plan and those regulations or codes are consistent. So most counties have one, and the law required it by 2010. But part of what may happen is, especially since we're in 2020, is those plans are to be looked at and brought up to date on a regular basis. But that's not the only kind of plan. There's also the strategic plans. How are we going to organize and be structured and meet our goals? And more importantly, what are those goals? Capital improvement plans. You know, you don't want to be reactive totally when you're spending lots of money on things such as facilities and transportation. Parks plans. Those are important in a lot of respects, so that if you do have a local needs for parks, that's done purposefully and intentionally. And very often it's in terms of getting grants, often needed. And transportation plan, which I somewhat referred to in terms of capital improvements. And that's not the end of the list. There's more than one type of plan. And that's part of developing policy at the county board level. Now the budgets, and we're going to drill down into budgets very deeply in the next week. The budget is the document through which the board determine what services will be provided, how they'll be funded, and to what level they'll be funded. Can you think of anything more important that you will be doing than just that definition of a budget? And some those that study government policies often say you can take a measure of community by looking at its budget, because it tells you what they prioritize and how much they're willing to provide resources and tools to address those priorities. The other way that policy is made is through ordinances. Ordinance is essentially a local law. So when we went back and we had the slide where we talked about that you make policy through local law, ordinances is the tool that you use that. And an ordinance is the local law. Through the boundaries of your county, that will be the law of the land. Now, remember, we do not have in counties home rule, so you'll need to tie that ordinance to a statute that says that you have authority as a county to adopt that. But there's certain other things too that can relate to ordinances as to how you're going to operate your county at an administrative level. There's a statute that provides for that, and you have much more flexibility on that. And then who enforces the board? Do supervisors go out and charge people or arrest them and bring them before the board to be tried? No. You make the laws and then you turn it over to others to enforce it, usually through court actions, sometimes through licensing, and sometimes into court if they fail to obtain the necessary licensing and permit. An ordinance is intended, though, to be an important permanent part of the governmental operation. And so frequently they'll be created and collected into codes, sometimes a comprehensive code where you have every ordinance in one book. Sometimes not that specific. When I was a county corporation counsel, our county code was all in a file drawer in the county clerk's office. Talking with my successor there a couple of weeks ago, I find that that is no longer the case, which is important because then it's easy for everybody to access and find out what they are. So the ordinances also not only restrict conduct, but they also are regulatory, licensing, zoning. One example is there's a specific statute in Chapter 59 that says you can regulate transient merchants, junk, and secondhand car dealers. This one was created by the legislature when a group of college students traveling to Wisconsin to sell educational books tragically died, and found out nobody knew where they were, nobody knew who they were, and also these people were calling on people's houses very frequently, the transient merchants. So, the county board's given specific power to create ordinances to regulate those particular subject matter, and that's just one example. County boards also act through resolutions. Resolutions are statements of county policy. They're not necessarily rule of law, but they are binding on the counties themselves. There are ways to speak to other units of government, but sometimes something like, say, a personnel policy or a policy for dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and how it's locally implemented. That is frequently adopted through a resolution rather than through the formality and permanency of an ordinances. And sometimes it's used to grant, special privileges, to express opinions, and sometimes there's a resolution is often used as a written document to formally adopt a budget. And typically we frequently get asked what the difference is. So resolutions are usually in writing, but not necessarily so. Ordinances are always in writing, and they're always required to be published after they are adopted. Okay, so that's a lot of what the county boards do, some of what their role is. Let's talk about somebody that you're familiar with, because on your first day, the interesting part of your training is you're already bringing a couple of months of experience into these trainings, and many of you are coming in to update your knowledge base or refresh your knowledge base from serving for a long time. When I was both a district attorney and later a municipal judge, I had the interesting circumstances. I came in to fill out somebody else's who had retired or resigned early. And so when I went and did my initial orientation training, I'd already been doing my job for 4 to 6 months already. But I'm sure all of you are familiar with it, have seen and have probably elected your county board chair. I'll take it back. You definitely elected your county board chair. Their role is to preside over meetings of the county board of supervisors. They're also empowered to administer oaths. I talked to one county administrator who was concerned about their a clerk that had some immunity issues and their exposure to a large number of people administering the oath of office. I pointed out to him the statute said the county board chair could do that, so she was exposed to fewer people. They're required to countersign all ordinances with the clerk, and they are looked to as the spokesperson for the county board. And if you want to see the specific statute, I have that on there. That's in 5912. I'm going to take a brief moment here. I see there's a question. I'm going to see if it relates to that particular slides here. Gavin Luter, who is with the university, asked if there is a difference between the kind of zoning counties manage versus municipal zoning. A few. First of all, counties don't have any authority within cities and villages for zoning. And then they have a partnership for zoning with towns. Towns can either have their own zoning, and if they do, that has to be with the approval of the county board, or the towns can adopt county zoning, and that is a decision. And then they have a right to approve any amendments, including zone changes within their towns. So it's an interesting interrelationship for zoning for a county. Another area is shoreland zoning. That one, the statutes give a specific power and authority for zoning within the shoreland area of lakes, navigable lakes, and waterways. And we have a lot of programs on our website talking about shoreland zoning, but if you need to know any more, please note the website, or Gavin, you know my email, and I'm going to give out my email at the end, and you can follow up on that. Then the question is, what if the officials don't enforce ordinances? Well, that's an interesting and important question. I think the officials we're most often talking about would be certain ones of them will have what's known as prosecutorial discretion. District attorneys do. And that's part of the reason they're elected. They have the power to decide who gets charged and who doesn't. But on the other hand, the county corporation council works a little more directly under the observation of the county board and under the administrative structure of the county. And they're very often called upon to enforce specific county ordinances, as well as administrators of other parts, such as usually there's a planning or a zoning administrator. That is the delicate dance between management and policy making. And part of your job will be to make the public heard and the wishes known to those. But otherwise, there are various forms of accountability, probably far too involved in here. One example, I would say, your district attorney who is called upon to enforce criminal laws, their accountability, of course, lies in the ballot box every 4 years. I think that's the best I can answer that in the time that we have allowed here today. If you want to follow up with me later for a discussion, please note my email at the end and send that question and leave me a means of getting back to you. Okay, the county board chair powers we just reviewed. So let's talk about administrative home rule. And those of you who are alert are saying, I'm sorry, you just said there is no home rule for counties. Not home rule in the extent that it can engage in powers that are not specifically delegated by statute. But here's a statute that delegates a degree of administrative powers. So when you look at some counties compared to yours, you'll see they'll have offices that may or may not exist like yours. They'll have committee structures that may or may not be exactly like yours. And you'll certainly see that administrative structures will vary. And this is where administrative home rule comes in. There's a statute that says every county may exercise organizational administrative power subject to what's in the state constitution and statutes. He uses the technical term or formal term, enactments of the legislature of statewide concern. So some counties will have a park commission that governs their parks. Other counties will not, and they'll have park committees. How are they allowed to have that distinction? Through administrative home rule. Limitations on that, there was in 2010 a county executive who the statutes provide the authority to make appointments for the county with the board approval. The board asked if the executive had a problem with the board making the appointments itself. And the executive, they proceeded on that basis. I don't know if there was agreement on that or not, but the Attorney General reminded that county of the specific statute that says county executives, if you're a county with a county executive, and that's a position, not a description, he or she cannot give up their appointment authority to the board because that's contrary to the statutes. So you have some flexibility. So let's look at these forms of county government and the way they are administered. I've already given you a preview of the county executive. And there's the county administrator and the administrative coordinator. Those are the three forms. Here you see a map of how the counties break down and who has those types of government. With one amendment, Washington County this year has elected its first county executive. So you see that there's a lot of variety. Predominantly administrative coordinators seem to be the predominant form, but you can see that the executive and administrators are important organizational tool used. And the executive is the chief executive officer. Listen to this language, this is important. Coordinates and directs all administrative management functions. And so that pretty much makes it clear that the county executive is the manager, the day-to-day administrator. If you have a county executive, how's that determined? Well, if you have more than 750,000 people in your county, statute requires you to have it. All other counties, the board can decide to have an executive, or voters can petition the board, and the board holds a referendum, and then the petition and referendum will decide that the counties have an executive. One important power the executive have is they're like a mayor. They have a veto. They can veto ordinances and resolutions and appropriations, either in whole or part. The board keeps its connection to the people in power through the ability to override that vote with a 2/3 vote. And county executive appointments, we just talked about. They do the appointment, and it's waived by, or excuse me, it is confirmed by the board unless the board wants to waive that, or a civil service system is put in place. They also appoint members of boards and commissions of the county, where statutes give that authority to a county board or its chair, but those are still subject to confirmation, and the county executive submits a budget. Now, by distinction, the administrator is a permitted form of government, county government structure, and that's done by resolution of the board, or again, the people can petition and hold a referendum. And the administrator is appointed by a majority of the board. The county administrator is the chief administrative officer. Slight distinction, the executive is the chief executive officer of the county. Coordination and direct, they coordinate and direct all administrative and management functions. Notice we use that same terminology when talking about the county executive. They appoint and supervise department heads, but it's subject to county board confirmation. They appoint members of boards and commissions as well, where that's given. And again, county board confirms those. He or she answers the county board of supervisor. They also submit the annual budget. And an interesting point in the statute is the statute says that an administrator is appointed solely on merit with no weight given to residence, political affiliation, and other aspects, solely on merit. You would think that would apply to any appointment at a county level, but it's interesting that I think the legislature chose to state that. And I think that was a statement on their part wanting to emphasize some of the professionalism they want and expect from this particular position. Now, the third option is probably the least defined. The history of county government has been to become more complex and to have greater single administrative direction and guidance. And so the county statutes say, if you have an executive and if you have an administrator, then you will have an administrative coordinator. And that administrator shall be, and this is the statute language, coordinating all administrative and management functions. The key distinction there is it does not have the word direct and coordinate. So this often varies from county to county. I think the goal is to try to have an administrative coordinator do as much guidance and leading, similar to like you would have in a village or a town administrator, where the board runs the government, but they frequently hire administrators to take care of many important day-to-day management functions. It can be an elected or appointed official that is designated, but you cannot be a county supervisor and legally serve as an administrative coordinator. And that's based on an opinion and statutes of the Attorney General interpreting those statutes. If you read those statutes, I think they're quite clear. The other people, so that's administration. I see my time is running up. I thought I didn't have enough material for an hour and a half today. But clearly, we're going to need to wrap up here. So I want to point out the constitutional officers. Please, if you can, bear with me as much as you can, and I will try to get you back to your important other functions that you have today as soon as possible. Here you see a listing of those constitutional officers, and we call them that because they are specified in the statute. Asterisks are on coroners and surveyors because those functions can be handled in other ways other than having an official person, but originally they were, and in many places still are. You don't have direct control over constitutional officers. You primarily control their budgets. However, if you don't budget and provide for them the means to do the job, there have been histories where there have been lawsuits, nothing recently, I don't think anything within the last 30 years, where a county officer has gone to court and saying, tell the board to do its job. Why do they have that? Well, they have important jobs to do, and you're essentially a check and balance on it as the person that, and the board that provides the funds and the personnel. But they also are directly answerable to the people. The other reason you have that limitation is they are involved in a strictly executive function versus the legislative functions. And again, as they are accountable to the public regularly. So you have this thing where they're part of the county government, but they're also doing the state government function. I think I see the questions, and I think I'll try to get to those at the end. That way, if someone who needs to go, they can, and I can cover content here. There are protections of these county constitutional officers. You can't, if you don't think they're doing a good job, you can't reduce their pay. You can only do it for the next election. Here's a listing of other county departments, and these are not constitutional officers, but these are, some counties have these departments. Some of them are required to be there For example, human resources isn't necessarily required, but these are other day-to-day administrative departments that you see. And to the degree that there's some distinction is the degree to where they're not specifically required by statute, or the degree that counties have used their administrative home rule. And there are other, and that's, again, as to those departments, the day-to-day is through the department heads or through the administrative structure that your county has chosen, and your controls through budget and other guidance. Now, here's the key part, and here's where I want you to start thinking about the picture of the Packer football team. So I've talked about a lot about what you do. I've talked about what you can't do. What I'm really telling you is what your role is as a county official. And to do it well, when you look at a team that, like the Packers, that wants to reach a particular goal, they don't have 11 quarterbacks. There aren't 11 middle linebackers on the other side of the ball. Everybody has a specific role to play, and that's how it works well, and that's how they win, lose, or play well. And leadership is a key part of every aspect of county organization, but I would say it's probably most keenly where you're being called upon to serve an important role to guide, lead, and inspire. And you do that as a chairing commissions and committees and through leaderships of those. Your staff is there to help you. They have different responsibilities, but your role is legislative, but they are operational. They're the ones that make it happen. They put the rubber to the road each day, but they're also there to inform and advise you so you know how the county is running, so you know how to figure out how to better guide and better fund. It was described, this sharing, in this court decision where the court adopted an attorney general opinion that I referred to earlier, said that their function is primary policy making and legislative. And the county executive, in this particular case, is administrator and manager. And it breaks down, and I'm going to skip ahead to this one, the difference between policy and administration and operations. Policy is what the board does. What and why are we going to do this as a county? What are we going to do? Why are we doing it? Why does the public need it? Does the public need it? So forth. Administration and operations then is where the staff and the day-to-day gets done, the how, when, and where. Example given by the Attorney General and pointed to in the Schuette court decision is that the decision of whether to enter into a public works contract is policy. County board makes that decision. But the day-to-day part of it, that they say is an administrative and a manager function. So in the private business analogy, you look at, remember we said your body is a corporate body? Private corporations is a good analogy here in that corporations have boards of directors, and that's what you are. But they don't do the day-to-day running of a corporation. That's what they have chief executive officers and other executives to do. So here's another way to work through it. Policy is what and why. Will we fund a new highway equipment in 2020? Will that new equipment be necessary for the service of the citizens? But day to day will be, how will we plow the roads? When will we start repairs? I don't say when do we plow them, because usually nature decides a lot of that. And where do we fill potholes? County board doesn't decide where to fill potholes. County highway commissioner does that, the day-to-day administrative function. And that's how it breaks down. Policy relates to the overall mission and purpose of the county. It requires you to have vision on the horizon and the goals and the longer term. And you address the key issues and strategy, how to reach those and to guide the day-to-day work. Operation takes that vision and policies and strategies, implements in the shorter term to the degree of the day-to-day, smaller functions, individual issues, and attention to detail, and to some degree often requires specialized training to do those particular works. For example, many staff have to have education in their areas. They certainly have or will develop expertise. They're required to be background checked frequently to be hired. Many positions are bonded. And they often avail themselves to professional organizations like you are doing today to stay current. Whereas you serve that function of being locally connected and bringing that power source and that local vision and guidance to that staff's day-to-day operation. I'm going to wrap it up here then. I'm going to come jumping ahead, and you have those slides in the handouts, and they'll be available. It's really ends and means. Policy makings are, these are the ends. These are what we want to achieve. This is where we want to be. And administration is how we're going to do that and what makes it happen day to day. And I'm bringing you back now definitely to that Packer analogy. We talked about the team and each role that each player plays. I think the Packer organization is a perfect analogy for county boards. It has a board of directors, and the shareholders are the people who own shares. Your shareholders are your taxpayers. But in the Packers, the shareholders have a board of directors, and they guide the organization so that they have the ability to put forth a team and a team that can bring home championships. Have you ever seen a board of directors on the sideline of a Packer game? You often hear their name, you often hear about the president of the board, but you never see them on the field, nor do they have headsets talking to the coach, and they're certainly never in the huddle. And so that's where I think that you have a role in the team, because if you play your role and everyone does their role efficiently, well, and especially your most challenging role, providing leadership, you're going to be a successful and great county supervisor or county official. Here's some other resources. The first 3 bullet points are books recommended by a retired colleague at the university, Professor Dan Hill, that talk about how board decision-making and board leadership can best be done. The statutes we talked about before, please look at the bottom. There is my email for follow-up questions. The officials handbook that Sarah told you about. And again, there is my email once more. This will wrap up with a little 10 extra minutes. And this is, Sarah, this is my tribute to John Hokermer, who used to deliver this presentation for many years. John always went over, and here I go. I hope you will all be back the next 3 Mondays, because there's a lot of important and specific information coming, and it's going to help you play your particular role with the counties. Before going out, I will see if there's anything, if I can address these questions before we go. Is the clerk and the county administrator the same thing? No, they are not. The county administrator is always a separate position. Sometimes clerks serve as administrative coordinator, and that is a permitted appointment, but they are not necessarily the same thing. And I'm speaking of the county administrator as the county administrator position, not the administrative coordinator. If the county has no human resources department, who takes over that role? Well, if you have an administrator or executive, that would be their responsibility to oversee those. If you don't, then it's up to the county board to use their administrative home rule to establish how that's going to be done, frequently by hiring a human resource manager that's answerable either to the admin coordinator or to the board. But there's flexibility on that in that administrative home rule that I talked about earlier. Would I show the list of constitutional officers? If you have your county officials manual, they're listed in there. You also hopefully have these slides were emailed to you last week. And if not, they will be available on the website. And thank you for having greater interest in that particular point. No, the question is, do the county board have complete ordinance authority over towns? No, you don't. The authority you have is over town zoning. Towns if they have adopted village powers, can adopt their own ordinances, and you have oversight of town zoning. But that's a very deep and specific issue. And I would direct you to our website as well as the County Officials Handbook to understand that a little more particularly. So essentially, counties handle counties, and so they're county ordinances. Counties cannot require towns specifically to do anything except where they have specific jurisdiction, as I said, regarding the zoning oversight and the shoreland zoning. I got the feeling you're maybe thinking of something in particular here, and maybe that's something that is going to answer. Daniel Foss says he wants to take that question, so maybe before I close, I'll throw it over to him. And how do we find out who the administrative coordinator is in Lafayette County, please? Well, if you would go to the Legislative Reference Bureau, has the County Blue Book, and I believe they list administrative, or not County Blue Book, but the Blue Book for the state. I think they list county administrators, administrative coordinators, and executives. You look to that, or look to your ordinances and resolutions. And also counties are required to have a county directory. So you will probably find it there.
Philip, there is one other question in the chat. What can a county board do to deputies which are required by statute? Can they cut their hours and salary?
That's an area of great complexity because the deputies are answerable to the sheriff, and there is a role for county boards. Again, like you say, the funding and that sort of thing, but many of those the deputies are unionized. Complex issue you have there. I would suggest you keep your eyes and ears open because it is a frequent question. It's a frequent article in the Counties Association. But I will say this, the primary source of responsibility there for deputy supervision is on the sheriff. There is disciplinary provisions in the Chapter 59 of the statutes that involves committee operation and filing a complaint and notice a hearing. So that, just by saying those things, gives you an idea of just how complex and important the question is you're asking. But that's about as much as we can get into in the subject matter and the time that we have allowed here today. Okay. All right, so we've lost about 30 of our participants. Thank you all that have remained. Please set aside time in your next 3 Mondays. I hope it's worthwhile. And please watch your emails too, because you will be getting materials from the Counties Association for those upcoming programs. And also watch the Local Government Center website, as well as the Counties Association website, where this program and its materials will be posted, so you can re-access those. And I see one more question here. Oh, and appreciate those words of thanks and offerings that you have. Everybody, please have a very good week. Please have an excellent and fulfilling and rewarding career as county leaders. And we will see you all again soon, I hope.